We be live.
Woo!
Oh, that's pretty. Wow, that
That's
had
not
a lot
bad,
of
right?
energy. Yeah, a lot of
Right?
energy.
It gets
Yeah.
everybody excited. It gets everybody ready. You know, we're focused. It may blow out some people's eardrums, so we're sorry about that. But
Oh yeah, sorry guys. Yeah.
they're fine.
Wakes people up. People like
That's
now
right.
they're not gonna pay attention. Now they're
That's
gonna
right.
okay. I guess it's happening. I guess this is happening.
That's right. Get ready, folks.
This is. All right, guys. Welcome to another Q&A with Atheist Republic. Me and Secularity will be answering Patreon questions, right? So if you would like us to answer your questions, we also answer super chats. So if you didn't get, if you're a Patreon, or if you're not a Patreon and you're like, oh damn it, I had to be a patron to be able to get my questions in, it's okay. We also answer super chats, right? Right in the middle, if you guys want to use that option. So we have a whole bunch of 13 Patreon questions today. If you are a patron, you every week we post a link to the stream a day before the stream goes live. It goes live, and you guys as patrons are able to post your questions under that post on Patreon, and then we gather them here, and then me and Secularity answer them. So consider becoming a patron. Link in the description. Or sending us your questions with a super chat. But after we finish answering the Patreon questions, we're going to post a link on Atheist Republic's YouTube channel's community tab, a link for you to be able to come up and talk to us live on air. Like instead of just reading your question, you could ask us your questions live on air. That link would be visible to YouTube members only. So we have to be a YouTube member of Atheist Republic if you want to come talk to us live on air, right? So patrons get to ask questions ahead of time for us to answer. Super chats also get to do the same thing, and YouTube members get to just come and talk to us live, right? If you come up and talk to us live, please try to get to the question very fast, to the point. You don't like not. It's not. Don't give a speech. Just ask your question, and then we'll respond to it like that. All right. We did have a new YouTube member. So where's that? Yeah, there we go. Wishwa Kumar is a new YouTube member. Thank you for becoming a member. Wishwa. How are you, Secularity?
I'm good, man. Yeah, I'm always excited to be here, and I was looking through the questions beforehand while you were getting them ready, and we've got some really good ones, I think. So I think it'll be fun, and hopefully some people will come up and yell at us or compliment us. Either way is nice, I guess, you know.
Yelling would be nicer. Yeah. I enjoy the tension sometimes that we have in this channel. I think a lot of people keep telling us to calm down sometimes, but that's never going to happen. So
can't stop, won't stop.
Yes, in fact, I miss my angrier version these days. Right?
I will think of some things, maybe just some like sentences or statements that maybe I could throw in every so often to kind of rile you up. Like, one of the most healthy things for you as a human is sugar. You know, like
no. Shut up. No, but seriously, I've realized, like, people telling me to calm down made me realize that I have calmed down and I shouldn't be, because I like that version of myself when I get like heated, right? So I'm gonna try to see if I could tap into that a bit more. Anyways, we should get to the questions. Let me see. Okay, let's see. All right, Oxymoron is asking, do you think WHO is pushing a bit too far by adding vague dimension like spiritual well-being to health? I don't know much about this, but I think, do you know much about this? I'm gonna look this
up. A little
up.
bit, yeah. So this is something that has been talked about a lot more in various medical and health communities around the world. This concept of spiritual well-being being something that's important. So oftentimes when those institutions are using spiritual, they're not using it in the same sense that the everyday individual would be using them as, right? Like when you walk on the street and somebody says they're spiritual, the way that the WHO and other medical establishments are interpreting this is not in that supernaturally kind of view, but more in the sense that it seems for the vast majority of people, probably not every single individual, but for the very, very vast majority of human beings, this component of your life about some of these existentially type questions is actually something that can bring you harm, just even as simple as being anxious about it all the time, right? Not the obvious harms that religion and some of these kind of paths can lead down, but specifically just that as kind of a whole thing, this is an aspect to being a person, it seems, that we all kind of, at least in some way, some of us come out on an atheist side, some of us come out on a theist side, all the things in between. But it's kind of like sexual health being something that's important. So not everybody is sexual, right? Some people are asexual, and that's perfectly fine, and they're perfectly healthy with that. But coming to terms with that and understanding what is the best for them in that component is still very important. The sexual health part doesn't mean you have to be having sex all the time, right? Just like the spiritual health doesn't mean you have to believe in ghosts and gods and stuff. It's just more along the lines of kind of this is a major component for people. So
okay, but what is the difference between spiritual, like, why don't we just have mental health?
Yeah.
Why are we talking?
Yeah, and I think it probably is fair if this were just completely wrapped up into that. I understand why I think they want to distinguish it a little bit.
What the hell is spiritual health?
Again, I think it's that kind of generalized feeling that most people have where we at least engage in these thought processes around these big questions. So like, is there an afterlife? It doesn't mean this spiritual health thing doesn't mean you have to believe in an afterlife. It just means that a lot of us seem to have this problem that we struggle with and we wrestle with these questions, and coming to terms with that on your own is going to be very important.
Here's the definition. Okay.
Yeah.
The definition is spiritual health includes, okay, so it's not a definition, it just tells you what it includes: a purposeful life, transcendence, and actualization of different dimensions and capacities of human being.
Yeah, a lot of these are really flowery words, but they don't ultimately mean anything.
Mental health. I mean, mental health.
If you want to focus more on the individual, say, like components of the brain that could have problems with it, that could bring harm to your mental health, if you want to focus heavily on that, I can see why this is a different category, just because you want to actually focus on the physical substrate of the brain. You want to say, hey, these neurons aren't firing properly, or these neurotransmitters aren't in enough quantity in your brain to give you these things, right? So I think it could probably...
Mental health is not you talked about always in the form of neurons.
I know. I'm saying if you wanted to focus more in that vein, I think making this distinction between these categories is more worthwhile. And I'm not positive that's exactly what they're doing, but
look, it says spiritual health creates a balance between physical, psychological, and social aspects of human life. So does mental health. I mean, like, I don't understand what is being added here. I think this is dangerous. Using this kind of language makes it seem like religion had a point.
Yeah,
we already had mental health. Mental health includes self-actualization, having a purposeful life. What the hell? Why do you have to go ahead and call it spiritual? Like, this is like...
Again, I would have preferred a different term. I think there are some better, terms that kind of get at the same thing as what spiritual does oftentimes, because there is an argument that spiritual is actually more secular, at least in some usages, and it's not really like pointed towards any religion.
This is a gateway drug to religion. This is like, no, this is like, this is a good way to convince secular people that maybe they need religion. Okay, it's a gateway drug. They're like, oh, you're sad? Maybe your spiritual your spiritual health is in decline. You need something spiritually, and people are like, oh, scientists are telling me that I need spirituality. Maybe there's something to religion then. That's what this is like. Just the word spiritual health makes it seem like, oh, now even scientists are admitting that you need God.
I mean, I'm on the side of using better term for sure. I think there's a better terminology for this.
We already had a term for this. It's called mental health. Again, we already had it's mental health. Like, what is your problem?
I think there is enough of a difference. If instead of it's called spiritual health, what if it's like existential health? You know, and it's these types of things. So a longing for community, right? Or a sense of purpose in life. I think those again can be rolled into mental health, but I think this distinction is trying to get at a little bit of a difference between those two things, being the actual physical mechanisms in the brain, which we know a lot about and we can do things with, and then these types of questions that we wrestle with that don't necessarily connect to that physical problem.
It all connects to the physical.
Well, sure, but
I understand that you don't have to deal with the physically describe what's happening to be able to address the problem. Okay, but again, in mental health, you don't do that. Okay, when you go and talk to a psychologist or a mental health expert, they don't usually talk about your neurons or the chemistry in your brain. Okay, they ask you, I don't know, about
not necessarily.
They ask you about what's your relationship with your parents, or like they ask you about, I don't know, what you are, what makes you get up out of bed every day, like what do you look forward to?
Okay, in that process, if they determine that there is a chemical imbalance or portions of your brain that have physical abnormalities, right?
Yeah, of course, but I'm just saying they don't. We already have an entire branch, well, I think multiple branch of healthcare that is addressing both the physical aspect of mental disorders or whatever, or lackings, right? And also the not so directly physical parts of it. We already have that. I mean, like if your shrink is not talking to you about whether your life is purposeful,
you may not have a good doctor. Like,
so you need to fire that shrink. Like, that's already included. This whole having a purposeful life is already included.
It's not just the term for you. It's also the distinction between these categories that you would say is problematic. You would say, because for me, I would say I'm cool with the distinctions between the two. Fine. I would prefer, instead of spiritual, we used a different word. You're saying you don't want the word spiritual like me, but you also think the distinction between the categories isn't necessary.
I mean, okay, so it's include, as you could say, like part of mental health
is this
having a purposeful life, having a good sexual health, having a good diet, having a good exercise habit, right? Having a good relation, having a good support group of friends, right?
For sure.
Do we have a name for that under mental health? Like, do we have a subcategory under mental health that talks about like your friend group, like the area of mental health that specifically focuses on seeing whether or not you have a good. Okay, no.
I don't think so. Yeah.
So I think like they are like this specific corner of mental health that is about having a purposeful life, right? They are branding it as spirituality, even though we're not doing that with other parts of mental health. Okay, not that much. Okay, are we? And the fact that spirituality is associated with religion, and they're rebranding a specific part of mental health as spirituality, to me seems like this is about something else. To me, this seems like religious lobbyists are trying to use science as a way, again, this is my conspiracy, theory. I don't know if this is true, but I just think like religion is trying to use like, oh, look, even WHO has put a stamp of approval of why you need to go to church. The most like credible, well-known health organization is telling you that spiritual health is important. So you're not technically wasting your time if you go to your church. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds like.
And I think that concern, I agree with and I share. I'm totally on board with that, and that's why I would say I would prefer a different term. But at the same time, I understand where you're coming from, that these two categories don't actually have that distinction. I don't feel too strongly either way. In my opinion on that, it's like, if we want to take a specific section and focus more on it and expand that and separate them out, fine. But I would, again, totally agree on the point of it should be a different terminology, like definitely. Because the more that we do that kind of blurring of the edges there, right? I think the more that it does lead towards people going towards the religious and the unsubstantiated beliefs and stuff. So, but yeah, I think either way it was good discussion.
Bad decision though, by WHO. I think
WHO. Reach out to us because Armin's got some thoughts. I know you guys watch. I know you're watching. So,
yeah. All right. Like sense. By the way, I do acknowledge that sense of purpose and meaning are important things.
I didn't think you were saying otherwise. I think you were just saying all of that can be wrapped up and should be wrapped up in mental health. And I just say, I can see that argument. And I can also see the other side too.
I also have to say, just because people are like, oh, religion gives people a sense of purpose, okay? And I do agree with that. It does. Mm-hmm. It just does a crappy job at it, okay?
Sure. I think there are better ways,
It's people are like, oh, religion provides a service. It gives people a sense of purpose. Like, it does. Disastrously, like horribly. There are way better ways to do that, okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Gaging American saying, thoughts on American military repeatedly failing their audits. Do you know anything about this?
Yeah. So this is actually for sure something very fun, and it definitely can get pretty dense. I'll try not to make it super dense, but the agencies in the United States government every so often, every year, have to account for everything financially, right? So Congress allocates the money to these agencies get the money, they do whatever they want to do. And then at the end of the year, they have to bring the receipts. So for the last 5 years straight, actually, the American military has been technically the Department of Defense has been the only branch of the United States government that has failed to complete its audit. One of the reasons that is the case, in some fairness and leniency to the military, is that for a really, really long time, we never checked. Like, we just did not check. Like, we would just say, here's 200 billion. And then they'd be like, great, it's gone. Can we have more? And we'd be like, yeah, of course. So once we started checking, one of the first things that we realized a handful of years ago was that there were massive systemic problems in place for tracking all of the financial expenditures by the American military. And I'm not justifying this. I'm just saying this is the case. A handful of years ago, this was discovered, that we did a really, really crap job of keeping the receipts for the Department of Defense. So what's interesting about this is that all of the high up people that have been following this story are not at all surprised that the Department of Defense failed the audit again this year. And the reason is because a few years ago, after running through and catching all that low-hanging fruit, those easy things to fix, they knew that it was going to take multiple years before they were able to actually give a full accounting. Now, all of that is to say, that's just the situation. That just is the facts on the ground. I would definitely argue we need to do a better job of that. Of all possible agencies in the United States government, our military spending absolutely needs to be accounted for. So I'm in favor of them fixing these problems and going through these audits and changing things, but they will also most likely fail for the next few years. So it's a weird situation.
Yeah. Okay. You had a lot more knowledge about this than I do, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. We did get a new member. PK came back as a member. Thank you, PK, for coming back as a member. Also, Dornabit is saying Armin was too calm. Didn't feel the need to tell him to calm down. Okay. Well, I'll try harder. I'll try.
We're just starting off, folks. Let us roll into it.
Yeah. Bread of Life is saying it's only good if it's true. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Talking about religion. Yeah, that's why they're all a waste of time, because none of them is true. All right. Wait, hold on. Let me see. Okay, this is let's go to a Higgs boson question.
Ooh, shaking it up. All right.
Ooh, this one. Higgs boson is asking, what's your opinion on Yee's or Kanye West's insanity? I think Ben Shapiro might have suggested that Yee should self-delete. Wow. I don't think he did that. Wow. Did he do that?
I don't know. I did not see that. I also don't follow a lot of Mr. Shapiro. So
okay.
I think I think one of the biggest things with this, unfortunately, is this is what happens when somebody is put on a pedestal, when a human being is touted to be this incredible, brilliant genius, almost godlike person in the circle that he's able to keep around them. So I think that's, he spent the last 20 to 30 years of his life with people around him that praised him, like literally. So I think that's part of it for sure. I think anybody in that situation will unfortunately succumb to some pretty terrible things. But I don't think that's all of it, but I think that's a part of it. So,
okay, I'm going to say something that might eventually in hindsight be like a terrible, terrible thing, right? But I welcome all of this, okay? I might be wrong, okay? But I think like I need the right-leaning people in United States to self-destruct, okay? And I think that there are two types of Republican. I don't want to say Republican because I understand not all of them are like this, okay? But two types of Republican movements, okay? A fascist movement that hides its fascism, and a fascist movement that doesn't hide its fascism, okay? So, and I think that the fascist movement within the Republican Party that doesn't acknowledge that it's a fascist movement is kind of terrified about this other side that is too transparent about what the Republican Party represents. And they're like, you guys are saying the quiet parts out loud, and this is going to end us. And I hope so. I hope that fascism is very idiotic, right? Like they come and they destroy, but they're too stupid to be strategic, right? Yeah. And that's why fascism usually like self-destructs.
Yeah.
And I think like we're seeing the insanity within fascism. Like these people cannot keep their mouth shut for their own good, right? And what I'm hoping, which I could be very wrong, okay, this might actually take over. I don't think so, right? I think like more people coming out like this just scares the general public of more things right-leaning, right?
Yeah.
And like if you look at like republicanism, they grow faster when they come across as, I don't know, mild and intellectual,
We're just standing up for freedom, Armin.
Freedom and stuff like that. Yes, free speech
The
and
kids,
like anti-woke and protecting family values, right? Yes. Right. And people are like, okay, sure, some okay, but then they come out and say stuff that I can't even say that he says, right? And people are like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's what they want. Oh, wow.
That's what they're about. That's what they want, right?
No, I understand that thought process, honestly.
Yeah.
It's
Am I naive? Am I being naive?
So I don't think you're being naive. I just would say it personally worries me at least a little bit, just knowing what has happened on the political kind of pendulum and axis over the last handful of years. And I also have that thought where it's like, man, I think what we're going to see is the right wing of the United States continue to divide itself and get those people that are more in this Kanye camp, right? And a handful of other, people that say terrible, horrible things that I don't even care to list. But all of those people, I think, are pulling a section of the population with them. And yeah, I hope that what that ultimately means is those two individual camps are now small enough that they're unable to ever exert power again. I also, though, worry that they will go real far to the right, and then a bunch of people will just be like, yeah, this isn't, okay, we'll try it. Who knows, what could happen.
Right, yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Do they have enough pull power that could actually? I think that
it's hard to know.
Yeah, my hope is that people are the balance is more people go towards like I don't want anything to do with this rather than them people being appealed by it. Like I mean maybe I'm too optimistic, naively optimistic. The same way that I don't know Germany was before Adolf. People were like that's not going to happen in Germany. So maybe I'm being naive like that. Maybe I'm like oh this is good. Let these people talk. They're going to turn everyone off. Maybe I'm being naive. I mean, like, oh shit! Like maybe like in 50 years, I'm gonna be like, look stupid. Like Armin, you said that let these people talk, and now the United States is
thanks a lot, Armin.
Full on fascist now. But I don't know. So maybe I'm being naive.
The midterm elections that just happened in the U.S. did have some very positive signs that the far right ideologies are not winning as heavily as people were initially predicting. So that may be a good indicator that coming up in 2024, we're going to see a shift over further into the left, back to the left. I don't know. We just, unfortunately, on some of it, we just kind of have to wait, which is probably the worst part because, again, Kanye West can go on Alex Jones's show and then say all the wacky things. So.
I mean, it was amazing how even Alex Jones and what was that other guy on censored TV? I forgot.
Right.
They're like,
we're like, that's too far, bro. Like, we're not
like,
even gonna go that far. Like, that's
they're like, yeesh.
Frustrating. Yeah, that's frustrating. So,
okay, Bread of Life is asking, what about religious people like me who aren't Republican? Are we fascist too? Okay, first of all, I was very, very, very careful not to say Republic. So there's two assumptions here, Bread of Life, that are very wrong. Okay, first of all, when did I say Republicans are fascists? I was like went back multiple times to make sure I don't say that. Okay, I said I'm not saying this about Republicans, so I'm going to be careful. I'm talking about the movement in general, and I even said, unknowingly, like people could contribute to a movement that is fascistic in nature without them themselves being fascist themselves or wanting to be fascist themselves, right? So I'm not even saying about Republicans, let alone religious people, right? So pay attention. I was very careful about the words I chose in the way I described that. So, so I don't believe that about religious people. Neither do I think that about most Republicans, right? Also, you know me. Do you do you really think I am somebody who thinks religious people are the majority of the planet? Do you really think I'm somebody who would say that the majority of the planet is fascist? So I don't know. I'm actually hurt about you asking that question. You managed to hurt my feeling. You broke my heart.
I would just say,
Rebecca.
Rebecca, please don't take it to heart. Armin just wants to be very spicy tonight, so he's just gonna start randomly picking out people and yelling at them. Maybe. So I'm just kidding.
No, I didn't yell.
No, you didn't actually, and we haven't yet. So we're gonna have to. We'll find something. We'll find something that'll make you lose your cool.
Who knows? Maybe secular rarity is the one who loses his mind today.
That's actually, we could switch it up. Yeah, that's a good point. I'll start yelling.
Yeah.
Give me a minute. I'll think of something that'll piss me off.
A D with the $20 super chat. Thank you so much, D. You're too generous. You're already a patron, and you're also giving us super chats. That's very generous. Thank you. And she also volunteers for Atheist Republic. She
does a lot of work.
She does a lot of journalism. Thank you so much, D. D is saying, to be fair, the left have been leading the decades in the U.S. These far-right moves are death rattles. What do you think that means?
So, like, in general, the course of, the policies in the United States, as is the case for the vast majority of the world, right? The long arc of history is clearly bending towards more and more liberal policies and practices, right? There are obviously moments and times where that progress seems to be, jerked back pretty hard. But at the same time, like, yeah, for sure, there was not that long ago in the United States, the laws that said Black people and white people can't sit together. So that's, the fact that is no longer the case means that some of the farthest of right of ideologies is definitely not winning. And this is also something too, the death throes, kind of the death rattles, in the sense that it also seems to be the case that some of these very long-term institution type stuff like that, like some of the really older, longer-term GOP members, their power is waning. Again, at the same time, it doesn't mean that everything's going to be great tomorrow when the sun rises, but for sure, over the last 50 to 70 years, it's been clear the progress that has been made. It's just really frustrating when, it still keeps having to drag its feet for, these people.
I mean, okay, so, but what is it called? The Weimar Republic? Am I saying it right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What happened before?
Oh, yeah.
Again,
I know where you're going.
Yeah. I mean, we had the most progressive government in Europe right before Adolf came and took over. Yeah. So it could just, like, that's what makes us worried. Like, maybe this is just a small thing, a small bump in the road on the total world liberal takeover, right? But sometimes these bumps end up being, stuff like the genocide of 9 million people, right? So I mean,
I agree. That's why we have to be vigilant, and that's why we have to call this stuff out with such intensity, right? Is because if we don't, then we're going back into that stuff again. So agreed, totally.
Yeah, by the way, guys, when you talk about the genocide part of World War II, okay, use the 9 million number, not the 6 million number, okay? Because it wasn't just the Jews.
Right.
It was homosexuals, handicapped people, Romanis. What's that? Yep. Romanis and political people. Yeah. So 9 million, not 6 million. Okay. Yep. Okay. Bread of Life is saying, "Oh, sorry to hurt your feelings. First of all, that was a joke. Second of all, I do not forgive you because I'm not a Christian and I don't have to." Right?
It's true.
So,
it's true.
Yeah. And also, Bread of Life continues by saying, "But Armin, you have changed in recent years. You used to speak much more strongly against religious people. I don't know what you're talking about. I have been more aggressively. I used to be more aggressive in tone against religion. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think I have a history of generalizing against religious people. Okay, maybe I have been very aggressive against specific individuals, But I have been very careful from the beginning, unless my memory fails me. Maybe bring this to my attention. I've never had a blanket statement about religious people other than the fact that their specific religious beliefs are idiotic. Okay. But I also always clarified that, non-religious people also have idiotic beliefs. But again, specifically for religious people, I'm sure I have idiotic beliefs. I don't know which one of my beliefs are idiotic, or else I wouldn't have them if I knew which ones they were. But religious people, I didn't make blanket statements about religious people other than what defines somebody as being religious, as what fits with the definition of being religious. So I don't know what you're talking about.
There's somebody out there who this is like their second episode, watching, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Armin used to be more intense." Oh wow.
Yeah, but against religion, not religious people.
Right. Yeah,
yes,
no, I'm with you.
Bread of Life is being snarky today. Look at
she's
this.
Getting you, honestly. She's been singing you. Like, I mean,
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Armin still eats religion for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and shit on them. Okay, I don't shit on what I eat, but okay.
That's probably a good policy. I'm just throwing it out. Not a medical expert, but probably.
Yeah. See, Bread of Life acknowledges that it has been scary in the past 6 years. Yeah. Hopefully, you guys can fix it. You guys, I'm holding you personally responsible for clarity.
It's pretty fair. Honestly, it's pretty fair. Yeah. I'm on the phone with most of the high up officials in the United States daily. So,
Good to do that. All right. Seriously, the next decade could make or break everything on the planet.
I completely agree. There are a handful of things, I think, over the next 10 years in the United States that will really set the tone for the next 100. So hopefully it's a good one, but yeah, I don't know.
All right, let's do another one. Oh, here's an important question. Higgs boson saying, will Iran get rid of the morality police for good? All right, guys, can you please understand that getting rid of morality police, even if that happens, which it hasn't happened, it doesn't mean anything. Okay? You could enforce these laws on people with many different entities in Iran. Okay? Like the groups that have been forcing these types of laws on people have already been rebranded many times in Iran's history. So getting rid of morality police is not necessarily synonymous with, oh yeah, we're going to let people alone and give them liberal lives and let them do whatever they want. Okay. I mean, it might mean that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Okay. It's not equivalent. It's not the same thing. You could get rid of the morality police and abuse people more than before. Okay. You could we got rid of morality police, but we're now shooting people in the streets, aiming at the face, blinding people for just showing up, and arresting people and handing out death sentences left and right, and giving more than decade-long prison sentences for people who were just happened to be at a protest. Okay, so first of all, the whole idea of them getting rid of morality police, they came out and they denied that. They were like this was they might in the future, and that might not mean anything even if they do that, but this was a lie spread by Nayak, which is a shameless, disgusting, lying Islamic Republic lobbyist in the United States, which are constantly trying to get American politicians off the back of the Islamic Republic. So they come and constantly whitewash.
Why would they have said that? Why would they have lied about that? That seems obviously it's going to blow up in their face.
It has never, because they have a history of doing this, and they are constantly still get invited everywhere. Wow. They get invited on CNN, MSNBC, on every podcast, on what is that podcast that sounds like? I forgot. They get on They get invited to every political event. Every time Biden is speaking about Iran, somebody from NIAC is sitting somewhere on the table, and they have constantly misrepresented everything that is happening in Iran, and they're still getting invited everywhere. They're the first people to always get invited to play on panels as Iran experts, even though they have been constantly discredited and constantly been shown to be a direct lobbyist of the Iranian regime, even though they have like different attire. They like they don't have any hijab. They wear ties and suits, and they are like,
put on different clothes. Like, come on, guys. That shouldn't fool you. Like,
then people get fooled. Yeah, and this time there was just one guy in Iran who they asked them, are they getting rid of the morality police? And he said like, well, I don't know. We're not going to do it. Maybe they're doing it, but we're going to still enforce the law. So that's what he said. And they're like, oh, he said somebody else is doing it. He said like, and his whole by the way, the whole point that everybody ran with, like as a way to say like, oh, the morality police has been stopped. The line that the guy was used, he was like, we're going to still enforce the law. Like even without the morality police, the guy was like, we're going to do our job and enforce the law. That's what they said, right? And people like, yeah, the line of the person that said that we're going to still enforce the law, they took that and ran with like, oh, everything is better now. And I think NIAC, like people, they give foreigners ways to think like, oh, you won the human rights, go home now. Everything is finished, guys. Like, look, they caved in. Yay, it's liberal now in Iran. Can we Can we now go back to the JCPOA? Can we please stop the sanctions on Iran? Their entire agenda of NIAC is to stop the sanctions on Iran, right? So they want to constantly portray the Islamic Republic as the sane side, and they have this evil imperialist West narrative that everything that is wrong with Iran is because of the United States, and you can't blame the regime itself. Like this is about, they are the people that will mention the coup d'etat of Mossadegh before you even say hi, like you're like to them, like they constantly want to throw that in your face, right?
Weird way to start a conversation.
Yeah, so no, like, so do not trust these people. And just, by the way, kudos to Susanna, okay, because on last time this was brought up in the live chat, because I didn't know what to like, because we were live on air with Susanna when this news broke out, and I'm like, I don't know what to make of this. I have to go look it up. But Susanna was there, and she was like, this doesn't sound right. Okay, this is fishy. And I'm like, I don't know. I have to go check. And she was like, yeah. And then I learned about how big of a nonsense this whole claim was from her stories, like when her stories that she was posting on Instagram. And then I went down the rabbit hole and I'm like, holy crap, she's right. Susanna was right from the beginning. So yeah, kudos to Susanna for being
ridiculous. Somebody saying we're going to disband the morality police, but we're still going to enforce the laws the exact same way is like them saying we're not going to have a military anymore, but we are just going to train a bunch of people as to how to stop an invasion or plan one with weapons. It's like, wait, that's you're just doing the same thing. You didn't change anything, like, gosh,
actually they're making it worse. Okay, so one thing that first of all, at the same time that this was being discussed, an entire business was disbanded in Iran because one of the clerks didn't have hijab. So like, oh yeah, sure, morality police is off. Or like, you just close the business for a picture of one lady without hijab showing leaking that they were like serving the customers without hijab, right? So but think like if you are seeing one without hijab in Iran, okay, it's not because the law has changed or because they don't want to enforce it. It's because they don't have the manpower. So many women are taking off their hijab. It's an impossible law to enforce at the moment. They are constantly promising their own followers that we will eventually enforce this. I don't know if they're going to be able to, but their plans is to enforce this, okay? And right now they're flirting with the idea of, okay, if we don't have enough manpower to enforce the job laws, what we're going to do is we are going to keep promoting the idea of vigilante justice and turning people on, like turning religious people into moral police. Like we want volunteers, right? So the government is now coming out and telling religious people that the government will have your back if you enforce this law.
Wow.
Yes. So if the government, so it's asking religious people in Iran to go and enforce this law themselves, and the government will back them more than before. Like your security would be assured if you try to by force enforce this law on people, because the government is asking its own citizens that we need your help. Too many women are showing their hair, and we don't have enough resources to enforce this law. So please go out and enforce this law, dear citizens. That's what's happening.
I wonder if there is some really, really specific examples from maybe somewhere else in the world where stuff like this has been encouraged by high-level politicians in a government, specifically trying to institute these very harsh Islamic practices. Gosh, I wish there was a place that we could see where like a mob of people were storming a police station and the police were so concerned about it that they literally dug a trench through their road. I can't think of where. Oh, Pakistan. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a really terrible idea. My God, that's horrible.
A lot of videos are coming out of religious people, right? That they're saying that they would never allow the government to relax this hijab law, right? They say that the day that the mandatory hijab law is gone from Iran is the day that the Islamic Republic has fallen, right? And they say a lot of religious people are promising that they would never let that happen. That they basically are saying you have to go over their dead bodies. And they mean that literally. Like when they say over our dead bodies, they say like we will become martyrs for this cause, right? And what I follow a lot of Iranian religious outlets, or and go into their rooms and listen to what they're saying, right? And they are saying that they will turn on the regime if the regime relaxes this law, right? So this is the problem that the regime is having. Then the non-religious people are already against the regime, right? And if the regime gives in to these people, now it's going to lose its base, because the base is like, we gave martyrs so that we could have an Islamic country. We gave blood. We gave millions of martyrs that died to keep this country Islamic. And now if you give in to this, this is not the country that we fought for. And we will give more martyrs to keep it Islamic. And we will turn against the Islamic Republic if the Islamic Republic doesn't show us that this is an Islamic country, right? So the regime is more afraid of its own supporters than it's afraid from these secularists or religious people who are against the regime, because that base is the only thing that is keeping it alive. So imagine if it loses that. That's why it's so difficult for the regime to be like, okay, no mandatory hijab. What could the outcome that people are hoping is like the people who wonder from like, okay, the actual outcome that the people are hoping is for the regime to fall, right?
Sure.
But the outcome of some people who are optimistic about upcoming changes but are not necessarily interested in the regime toppling, they're thinking that maybe what could happen is that you could keep the laws and don't enforce them, right? And I don't think people won't tolerate that. Religious people would, a lot of pro-regime people would tolerate that either. Yeah. But that we have a precedent for that. Like in Iran, for example, satellite TV is illegal, and almost everyone has it. Okay, so it's on the books as illegal, and it's not being enforced anymore because it's just too widespread for the government to enforce it. So they're saying, yeah, maybe get to that point. Well, we'll see. I don't think religious people will tolerate that, because unlike satellite TV, not having satellite TV was not the symbol of the Islamic Republic.
Yeah.
The hijab is the symbol of the Islamic Republic. So I
don't
believe
remember. I don't remember the ayah where it talks about satellite TV. You know, I don't remember it, but I think it said something like cable is better. I don't remember, but it's somewhere in the Quran. But
Secular Sakai just celebrated his 8-month membership by saying Zan Zindagi Azadi, which means woman life liberty or woman life freedom. So thank you. By the way, Susanna is here too. Susanna is in the chat.
Hey. That's our CEO.
Yeah, so, yes, Susanna is saying, okay, but this is yes, exactly what I was saying. Yes, okay, this is the living symbol of the Islamic Republic's authority. That ain't gonna stand. Exactly. That's exactly the difference. She was typing this before I said that, so see where she's thinking the same thing that I'm saying. Yeah.
That's why she's CEO and you're not. I mean, sorry. That was just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Okay, now we need to. Okay.
Bring it down. Bring it down. I got
you. Wow, we're getting super chat after super chat, guys. We got $5 super chat from Zagros. Thank you so much, Zagros. Zagros is saying, Armin don't want to be selfish, but I still wonder, should Iran turn secular? Would there be a chance for an independent Kurdish state by separation? Well, I hope not. That would not be ideal. That would not be ideal. I mean, there's always a chance, but that would cause a lot of bloodshed. That will cause war between the Kurdish part of Iran and the non-Kurdish part of Iran. But the vast majority of Iranian Kurdish people, Iranian Kurds, have over and over again mentioned that that's not what they want. Okay? During these protests, the Kurdish people of Iran have constantly signaled to the rest of the country that they are with the rest of the country. This is the Kurds in Iran that want separation are a small minority of Kurdistan, very small minority of Kurdistan, right? The Islamic Republic of Iran has always tried to highlight or like exaggerate how big of a movement the separatist movement in Kurdistan is, because the Iranian people are very afraid of separatist movement. So as a way to scare Iranians to not support the Kurds, the Iranian regime has always portrayed them as being separatists, right? But the reason the protest, the uprising, this current revolution in Iran has shown how Kurdish Iranians are united with the rest of Iranians over this movement, right? Iranian protesters have constantly chanted in support of Kurdistan and have mentioned constantly that Kurdistan is beloved by all of Iran, right? And a lot of Kurdish people always see that and notice that and see how cherished they are by the rest of Iran, unlike against all the propaganda of the Iranian regime, right? And also Kurdistan constantly chants that they are Iranian Kurds, that this is about freeing Iran. This is not about freeing Kurdistan, right? And they constantly signal that they're not interested in seceding from Iran. This is so this is I suggest you guys don't play into this game, because the whole suggestion of Kurdistan seceding from Iran is a propaganda used by the Islamic Republic as a way to divide Iranians. Okay, that is not what the Kurdistan wants, and if that ever happens, it will cause a lot of blood shed. It will be a sea of blood on both sides. So I hope that does not happen. Yeah, and also Zagros is continuing. So the demand state of Kurds in Iran is not similar to the Kurds Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. Didn't know that. No, yeah, the Kurds in Iran are saying that they want a secular democracy for all of Iran. They want an Iranian government that doesn't violate their rights, that doesn't discriminate against Kurds and Turks and Arabs, and they are even actively involved in support of their Turkish and Arab and Baluchi brethren, right? So the Kurds in Iran are fighting for the Baluch in Baluchistan, and vice versa. They're not fighting for their own. This is for all of Iran, right? The disagreements might be some over other things, right? So there are disagreements with certain Kurds that might say like, oh, we want Kurdistan to be able to teach in its own mother language in the school system, and there's some disagreements over that, right? But seceding from Iran is not a big deal, and it is something that the promotion of it works in line with the Islamic Republic's agenda. So let's not feed into that. Yeah, the unity is the name here. Unity between Kurdish Iranians and all other Iranians, and Turkish Iranians and Persian Iranians and Arab Iranians and Baluchi Iranians and Bakhtiyari Iranians. The unity of all, they have all been united now against the Islamic Republic. They don't have different goals. They're all united on one goal, which is bringing down the Islamic Republic. Did you want to add anything? We're getting a lot of super chats. So
No, I couldn't possibly expand more. You always kill it on that stuff. So.
Okay, Secular Sakai just gave us $20 super chat and then followed up by another $5 super chat, which is amazing. Thank you guys. Secular Sakai is saying, have you guys been following the depositors revolution in Lebanon? What are your thoughts on citizens who never had criminal records now normalizing bank robberies? Yeah, I saw that after 3 years of being locked out of their bank accounts. I saw one old guy was like doing like in the bank, just not leaving until he gets his money. I don't know what force he was using, but have you heard about this?
So I knew a little bit about this, but when I saw the super chat come through, I went and tried to look up a couple of articles about it. And there's one from, and I don't know how, trustworthy this source is. This is just the first one that came up, Now Lebanon. And so I was just kind of looking into that further, where they had kind of been interviewing these members of these groups. But yeah, apparently this is pretty it's a pretty big deal. I knew that there were problems with the banks in Lebanon, but I didn't realize that it had gone to this extent. So that's
Lebanon is such a disaster right now.
It sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't mean Lebanon sucks. I mean, it sucks that it's like that, because there's a lot of really great stuff.
Well, I mean, Lebanon sucks right now overall.
Okay. All right, fine. I was trying to be a little bit nicer.
Not the people, but the country. Like
the actual situation. Yeah. I got
you. I mean, I don't think it's fair for us to judge. Even people are doing. This is technically criminal activity, okay, sure. But it's very, very unusual circumstances in Lebanon right now. Okay, like, I mean, sometimes criminal activity. Like, think about this. Okay, the banks, right, really betrayed the people in Lebanon. Okay, the main culprits about what the situation right now is in Lebanon is the bankers, the politicians, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. Okay. So these are the unholy trinity that has made Lebanon the disaster that it is today. Okay, the bankers managed to get out of this. A lot of them get their money out before all of this disaster happened. Like, they really, really screwed over the people. Okay, and everything they did was legal, right? Yeah. Even though they screwed over a lot of people, technically it was legal, right? So you can see how something being illegal or legal does not necessarily mean aligns with whether it's moral or not moral, right? Especially in such dire circumstances that we're seeing in Lebanon. So just like something so legal by the banks were so morally reprehensible, you can see how something illegal by normal citizens, people who lost everything. People like imagine all your savings in your banks just completely disappear, right? And you just all your hard-earned money is just because of things that you're not responsible for, it's just vanishing. Yeah. So if you do something again, I don't want to say anything here because it's on YouTube, and I don't want to encourage criminal behavior. But I'm not suggesting anybody should do anything like that. But I'm just saying that it's not we're not in a position to judge stuff like that right now.
Yeah.
Okay, again, maybe I shouldn't say that because that I could get in trouble about what I'm saying.
Right.
We're not encouraging obey the law. Okay,
yeah.
We're on YouTube.
And I would just say again, from the little bit that I was trying to look into further, it does seem like some of these groups that are kind of at the front lines of it have gone through various processes. So it's not that they just started doing this, it's that they had gone through the processes of contacting the bank manager and, filling out various legal forms. Well, then that didn't work, and they've done protests outside the banks and stuff, and then they've talked with the government. So it's not as if like, this was just the first step that they took. So, but definitely something that I will be keeping this article up and reading it for sure. So
yeah, Lily's saying, is it bank robbery or a run on the insolvent banks? No, it's literally things that could be described as bank robbery.
Yeah,
average citizen.
Yeah, it does seem, again, from my limited understanding, it does seem like some of these instances mentioned are definitely exactly what you're thinking of when you think of a bank robbery.
Yeah, but bank robbery, not like go give me like more, like they're literally robbing the banks for their
money,
amount.
Right?
Yeah, it's like they're not like they're not like, oh, give me everything you got. They're robbing the bank and like give me my savings.
Right. They're not saying give me all the gold bullion you have. They're saying I have $1,400. Give it to me.
Yeah, just give me my fortune. Like they're robbing the bank for their own, for the exact amount that the bank owes them, right? So
kind of like holding up a restaurant to give you the steak that you had just ordered and paid for. That's like, just give me my meal. I'm trying to go home.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, so something I don't remember is saying once again my super chat is disappeared. Really? If you gave us a super chat and it doesn't show up, if that happened, like just like post your question again and I'll try to see it. Sorry if that happened. I don't think that happens. I don't think that super chats disappear. I mean, I'm looking at it everywhere. Okay, so
we didn't get a message.
But post it again, and I will highlight your without a super chat. Posted it again. Okay, something I don't remember. Just post your question, and I will highlight it with that, even if it's not a super chat. Okay.
Yeah.
Secular Sakai saying, did you guys discuss the Fourth Reich? TERRORIST coup attempt in Germany this weekend? No, we haven't.
We have two questions on it though from patrons. We have two questions from patrons on it. So
okay, so let's go. Okay, so we
absolutely will.
We will. Secular. Thank you for the super chat. Okay, let me see.
So I think
never comes.
D's question is one, and then there's one from Shannon talking about Germany and Peru.
Okay. And Zagra saying, yeah, at this moment, I agree. Everyone should fight the regime in unity. I was talking about the future, but thanks, Armin. Zagra, like I don't, even in the future, I don't think if things stabilize in the future, I think in Iran, there is very, very little appetite for any separatist movements. Very little appetite. So even in the future, I don't think that will happen. Unless there is like a civil war or something, which I hope not. So something I don't remember is not posting your question. She's just saying I need to switch from Amazon. So Amazon payment is so weird. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. So just post your question and I will answer it.
Yeah. If you were asking us whether you should switch from Amazon payments, yeah. So I'm just kidding. I don't know. But
okay. Let's go to the next question. Gaging American is saying 51% of Wisconsin comrades voted for Democrats, yet they make up 30% of the state legislature due to gerrymandering. How do you think this gap in the people's will and the legislature can be gapped? Would it be violence by the people or federal government, ballot initiatives, or strikes? I don't know much about this.
Yeah,
there was a link provided, which is thank you for that.
Yeah.
Do you know much about that?
For sure. I mean, not as much as some other things, but so gerrymandering is the process where you cut up a district into whatever weird shape you want so that you can help solidify the individuals that are voting in that area. So if you have a large block of, say, Democrat voters, one thing that you can do is split them into two totally different districts so that their votes now are much more watered down, right? So Wisconsin is one of the few states over the last handful of years that has had a really big problem with this. Other places are like Ohio, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee recently did some stuff too, but we're not as bad on that sense like Wisconsin is. But yeah, specifically, Wisconsin did such an intense job of gerrymandering the last time they had a chance that, yeah, this is what you see. You only see 30% representation for literally half of the state. I think, I'm not a fan of violence, Gasian. I figured you probably knew that about me, but so I'm not going to advocate for that, definitely. What I think is the thing that's going to fix this type of stuff, if we can't get a federal amendment, I think that would be the best thing to do just because it would be the most solid, but it is the most difficult thing to do in the United States government. Amending the Constitution is by design an incredibly difficult process. That being said, one of the first amendments ever proposed to the Constitution took 200 some odd years before it ever became an amendment. And the reason it became an amendment is because some random guy in like the 80s and 90s started going around and telling everybody, hey, this really should be a law. And that law was that sitting congressmen and women could not raise their salary while they were in office. That was actually initially proposed for the United States Constitution and rejected resoundingly. And 200 some odd years later, it got added in. So technically, the states have the authority under the Constitution to cut up districts as they see fit. And judges have repeatedly ruled that gerrymandering is a legal process as long as it is specifically politically partisan and not racially or religiously or national origin type motivated, right? So you can't gerrymander and say we're trying to do this so that Black people don't have a vote, but what you can do is say we're trying to gerrymander this so that Democrats don't have a vote. But yeah, I think what we're going to need is we're going to need a huge swell of public support, and we're going to need to push this on a federal level where all redistricting in the United States is done in a bipartisan manner. I think that's something that would really, really help a lot of things in the United States because we would have less polarization because people are actually voting, for the places that they live. So, but
all right, I think.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'm glad you're here for these American specific politics questions because these are too detailed for me. American, yeah. All right, let's go to Dee's question.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the arrests for the alleged coup plot in Germany? Why are so many people falling for QAnon conspiracy theories, and how much is Trump to blame? So first of all, you want to explain what happened? There was this far-right group in Germany that apparently wanted to take over the government.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and they were they had guns and everything ready to go, and the police came and arrested all of them. Right.
And they also apparently already had in place various departments and the heads of those departments that they would need to continually effectively running the government. One of the individuals that was arrested was a Russian citizen living in Germany at the time, who was scheduled to be the liaison for Moscow. So they already had people. They literally already had people in roles like treasury secretary and all that stuff. So
maybe I'm being too naive here, okay, but correct me if I'm wrong, but that just seems the most idiotic thing I've ever heard. I don't think that's gonna work. I don't understand how these people think all these steps through. They are going. I don't know how much gun they had. I don't think they could add.
supposedly, from what I was seeing, supposedly there's 20 some odd thousand members throughout the entire country of Germany is what they estimate. So that's not a huge amount of people, but one of the things that they were planning on doing was gathering at least a couple hundred of them together to go and
But
break
like,
through the
how are you
Bundestag,
gonna
the parliament and stuff.
how are you gonna just defeat the entire military?
I know. Hey, Armin, I understand math. Like I get how bullets work, and I understand that 500 people standing here with their guns, and then the German military. Like I get the disparity.
Let's say you somehow magically you defeated the German military.
Sure.
Okay? What about NATO? Okay. What about the U.S. military? Or do you think they're just going to be like, oh, okay, I guess you guys are in charge now in Germany? Like, do you think they're not going to, like, what? Like, are these people children? Again, I'm telling you, far-right people, their brains are just like broken. Yeah. Like, this is the only hope we have for fascism not taking over the world is because these people's minds are like, as good as a 5-year-old. I mean, actually, 5-year-olds can understand this. I don't know.
There definitely are similarities between this and the January 6th riots in the U.S. Capitol, where
they thought that they're actually gonna take down the U.S. government.
They literally thought that they could just walk in there and just tell them, hey, don't do this, and then that would just somehow magically fix all the things in the country that they didn't like. Like, yeah, no, of course not. They're not legitimately thinking this through that well, because the vast majority of individuals in the entire world are not currently and never will be in their lifetime actually a part of the interworkings of government. And the vast majority of us, what that means for us is we really don't know what the hell they're doing. We really don't understand what's going on because it's so complex and intricate. And just the idea that you could just have like literally some random Russian citizen just like show up at a Moscow embassy or something and just be like, hey, I'm here from these new German guys that just did like a coup thing. Like they just like emptied out the parliament and now they're in charge. Can I talk to Vladimir? Is he around?
No, like what do you think like France is gonna do? What do you think the UK is gonna do? Like, what do you think Biden is gonna be like? I guess you guys are the coup. Okay, so you guys are in charge now.
We'll
so
listen
we're gonna
to
be
you.
Like, sure. I guess we're going to just like not defend our allies. Like, I don't understand. My God. This is what makes this is actually good. Yeah. This is what makes me hopeful, okay? Because
it was a huge raid. It was very successful. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Not just not obviously it's Germans. They do everything right, okay? But
very punctual.
They're very. No, it's not just What makes me hopeful is how stupid fascism is. Like every time I'm like. Sometimes I like the good thing and bad thing about fascism is that it's stupid. So it's stupid, and a lot of people are stupid. So it appeals to stupid people, and they get a lot of followers. Okay, but they can't plan things, right? They can't they can't come up with plans that works long term, right? Yeah. I mean, the one time that they were the most successful in organizing, right? You saw how in Germany in World War II, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at it long in hindsight, you saw how unsustainable that whole model was, right? I mean, even many generals within Germany was like, "Oh, sure, yeah, let's pick up a fight with the whole planet." I'm sure that would last for long, and it didn't, right? It lasted it didn't even last a decade, right? So. The problem is that is so stupid that even when it lasts very short term, it does a lot of damage. Like QAnon or whoever these idiots were, they have the power of doing so much damage in such short amount of time. Right. But the good thing, so that's because of their stupidity, but also because of their stupidity, they're not going to last long, and that's what makes me hopeful about the world. Yeah. But what about the second part of the question? Do you think that I don't know much about them. Do you think they were under influence by QAnon at all
Well,
from the United States?
surprisingly, yeah, there actually was a decent chunk of the individuals that were a part of this organization specifically because they were influenced by QAnon conspiracy theories, and they talk about that. Again, one of the things that's really interesting about this is they literally had these individuals all part of this Reichsburger, I think is what the particular like group is called or whatever. But there was literally a group of them that were part of the like organizing council, and then there was a group of them that are a part of like the military wing. So like I said, they did have a lot of various things in place. But again, some of the individuals that were arrested in these raids, which again, incredibly successful by the German law enforcement and so forth. But some of the people that were arrested, the reason they were part of these groups and the reason that they specifically wanted to take over the German government and bring it down and institute their own government is because of believing in various QAnon conspiracies, which is surprising to me that these have been able to have such reach in other countries. I guess that just really shows the power of
why is these things come out of America? Like the first, this is like history repeating itself, right? In World War, like before World War II, the Yazidis, again, I'm using this word because I don't want to say the actual word on YouTube. They got their ideas first from United States. It came from United States to Germany, and now it's exactly the same thing. It's coming from QAnon to Germany. Again, it's not exactly the same thing. But it's just very funny.
We have good stuff in the U.S. I swear, y'all. Really, seriously, I swear we do. I swear we do. But yeah, I would probably agree with that assessment that you're giving out there. And again, I think it's terrible. I'm absolutely. I understand why there are United States citizens that fall very heavily into this, and I understand how just bad arguments, right, and not using critical thinking properly can lead us to believing these terrible things. But I just legitimately don't understand why anybody else in any other part of the world except for the United States would give a crap about QAnon. It is fascinating to me. There's a whole movement in Canada like that that is just like deep in this, and
let me defend United States, okay? It's because United States is a cultural leader in the world, right? So there's nobody that comes even close, right? Like the rest of the planet is watching your movies, listening to your songs, like looking at your fashion, following your politics more than you follow our politics. Like we care about your politics way more than you care about our politics.
That is true. That is
true. And your science and your technology, right? The entire globe is influenced by that and benefits from that. Okay, so just in the same way that the United States blesses the world with a lot of positive influence, including its science and technology and liberal values, it also harms the world just because you're the center of it. Like the United States news and entertainment and culture is like the sun that everything else seems to be rotating around. Some of these sun rays are positive and some of these sun rays are negative. So that's why.
I also think technically, and I could be wrong on this, but I do think technically the United States holds the worldwide record for most number of serial killers ever in a country. So I think we just blew that out of the water. I think we're like well above every. So, I mean, good on every other country for not having people that go around killing people all the time. So again, we do have good things. We do.
You do have mostly good things. You stop being a leftist for a second, okay? Like we have the internet.
We do good
stuff. Yes, we have computers and internet because of the United States. Okay,
that's true.
Yes. All right.
Winning. You know, honestly, we've never cared about what we're number one in, just as long as we're number one, right? We just want that first place trophy.
Yeah.
Yes, very true, Brett. Yes, very, very freaking.
Why you guys keep saying the bad things? This is like. All right, let's go. Let's go to the next one. All right, let's do a Shannon question. Okay. Shannon is saying, with North African and Middle Eastern teams at the World Cup constantly using their platforms to bring attention to Palestine, how do you see this support unfolding? And do you think any good can or will come from it? So we saw a lot of people trying to troll reporters. Did you saw that?
Mm-hmm.
Especially Israeli reporters constantly talking about Palestine. Here, let me actually share the screen. Thank you so much for actually providing a link. I like it when our patrons do that, when they provide a link.
Mm-hmm.
So this says, the media is getting pro-Palestinian expression at World Cup all wrong. The Qatar World Cup emphasizes the importance of hosting the tournament in the Arab world for the first time. All right, so there was a lot of free Palestine. By the way, I don't know why. How come this was allowed and Mahsa Amini was not allowed?
Oh,
like
you
could,
know,
yeah,
because the Qatari government was working very openly with the Iranian government.
Yeah. You see the players having Palestinian flag.
Yeah. I think it's, again, I think it's ridiculous for sure. Again, there have been many individuals with something as small as a pin on their shirt that happened to have a rainbow on it, that they were refused entry and were told that they would be, arrested or at the very least detained by the Qatari police. So yeah, it's definitely hypocrisy. But
Palestinian is getting pro-Palestinian at the World Cup all wrong. I don't even understand this title. What does that mean, all wrong?
Well, I don't know. Let's see what they.
It says, shortly after its dramatic victory over Spain on Tuesday, Morocco's World Cup team celebrated by hoisting the Palestinian flag and parading it for the thousands of fans in attendance at the Qatar World Cup stadium and millions of viewers around the world. The players carried out the same gesture after defeating Canada in the group stage of play. So what this? Okay, so here's the thing. These kind of moves are very, very popular among Muslim countries, the people. Okay, the people of these Muslim countries. However, their governments are moving away from these types of attitudes, right? So there's a major drift between the attitudes of people in North African and Middle Eastern countries and what their governments want, right? So Saudi Arabia just recently came out and transparently said that you need to be expecting normalization of I think Susanna sent me that. I think it was Susanna sent me that. They came out and said, you have to expect that we're eventually going to have relationships with Israel, right? Sudan, many other North African countries, UAE, Qatar, they eventually are going to give up on this whole pro-Palestinian activist mentality and just build relationships with Israel, especially because of Iran, by the way, right? So and the people don't want that, right? So this could be, in the future, this could be a major source of tension between the people of these countries and their governments. Like this could be this could even turn into like calls. Guys, let me just tell you how big of a deal this is, okay? 9/11 was about, to a large part, was about Palestine, right? If you look at the motivations of why 9/11 happened, okay, if you read the the manifesto, the reason why they explain why they did what they did was in support of Palestine, right? So, and this has not been something that a lot of these Muslim Islamists have forgotten about, right? This is not an attitude that is disappearing among these people. Okay, so if they came all across the world to United States to make their opinions about Palestine known, right, in New York, what do you think will happen in these areas? Like, I mean, I'm worried about a lot of maybe civil war, like in Sudan, in Saudi Arabia. Eventually these people are going to think that these governments are moving so far away from their own ideals that it will crack. Like the division could be just too much. And we're going to might see Islamist uprisings against their government in the near future. We're already seeing that played out ideologically between what two different da'wah movements on the internet, between two groups of Sunni groups. One, the ones who are called not by themselves as madkhalis, all right, as people who are bootlickers, the type of Salafi Muslims who are non-political, who are not involved, who advocate restraint, advocate not rebelling, advocate not getting involved in political activities. A lot of Muslims who disagree with them call them bootlickers of Saudi Arabia or the UAE or these other regimes, right? But a lot of people don't understand that Salafi movement is mostly people who are not jihadists, right? Because a lot of people associate Salafism with ISIS and Al Qaeda, but most Salafis are actually very quietist, like very pacifist in their attitude, and they encourage just practicing Islam and keeping it to yourself and not doing any form of rebellion against any government, right? That's what most Salafis do, right? And we have that attitude right now. We're seeing ideological war between these types of Muslims who are very popular, by the way, by Saudi regimes or other regimes, because they are actively promoting nonviolence and just accepting the ruler, right? Which is one person that we might know that is quite like that is Sajid Libham. I don't know if you know Sajid Libham, right? So he's from that school of thought. And then we have another school of thought of people who are constantly criticizing these governments for not being pro-Palestinians, for not standing up against liberal values, for having concerts, for having Halloween events in Saudi Arabia, for relaxing religious laws, and criticizing these governments. And people like Sajid, people who are on Sajid's camp, call these people Kharijites, right? Which is another insult to them. Because if you're a Kharijite, you're actually worthy of being killed in Islam. So that's very dangerous. Yeah. So that includes Daniel Hayraju. It also includes Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawa, right? So interestingly, now they're seeing themselves aligned on this topic, right? So we're seeing this drift right now between conservative Muslims, right? So this is not like, because we already had a fight between liberal Muslims and conservative Muslims, but now we're seeing a drift between conservative Muslims right now happening, right? And this Palestinian issue is one major topic among that, right? A lot of these madkhalis are seen as people who are betraying their Palestinian brothers, right? They're like, because they're supporting regimes that have forgotten them, right? And are in so we're gonna see this being a major part of this fight between conservative Muslims.
Real quick on this, do you think right now with these protests at the World Cup, these demonstrations, do you think that is the main thread that's coming through, or do you think this is more of a tool for the various Islamic communities around the world to kind of have that moment of solidarity? Do you think it's being used in that sense, like on the average individual that's taking part in it? Or because okay, go ahead.
No, say that
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
Like,
So, because I think your perspective was really good. That was very very in depth and interesting. And I think in the next few years we are probably going to see more polarization on that. But right now on the ground level, the average person that is holding the flag or running up to a journalist and saying something on live TV, do you think they're thinking about it more in that sense that you were talking about, or more in a sense of just like the Ummah, we're all together, we're connected?
Oh, they do. Okay, they are influenced by what I'm telling you without knowing what they're influenced by, right?
Sure.
A lot of them. The parts of them that they are consciously aware of is the fact that their governments are betraying the Palestinians. They're not supporting them. They're not standing up.
Sure.
They're getting closer to the West in the interest of money and tourism, and they're throwing their Palestinian brothers under the bus. But they're like, we the people have not forgotten the Palestinian people, even if our government have forgotten them. That's how they are. That's how it's being played.
Very interesting.
Yes. Yeah. If you go to this is why, for example, if you, for example, talk to Ali Daba and you're like, oh, look at Islamic countries. Islam can't be right because look at how bad Saudi Arabia is. Like, this is why they will come at you with full force, with angrily telling you that Saudi Arabia is not representative of an Islamic country.
Right? And being fed grapes the whole time while doing it. So
right. I mean, right. And by that, they're not meaning, they don't mean it in the same sense that a liberal Muslim. Okay, so a liberal Muslim, if they tell you Saudi Arabia does not represent an Islamic country, is because they think Islam is just chill with feminism, human rights, gay rights, and all of that. And that's why Saudi Arabia does not represent an Islamic country. Okay. A conservative Muslim, when they tell you Saudi Arabia does not represent a Islamic country, is because they're not Islamic enough, that they're not actually enforcing enough Islamic rules, that they're actually being too liberal, that they're having concerts and Halloween parties and letting mixed men and women mix with each other, mix and mingle. They have theaters, right? So they're like, that's why it's not an Islamic country. But in any case, nobody is happy with. I mean, the Madkhalis are happy with Saudi Arabia, but anyways, they're getting it from both ends. Yeah. Okay. So let's unhighlight this one and then go to. Let's go do another Asian American question. Asian American saying thoughts on Biden and the U.S. Congress forcing rail workers to accept a contract without paid sick leave. All right, let's do that. Let's do these short answers because we are running late. We need to.
I can be pretty quick, I think. So one thing that is important to know is that in the Constitution, the United States federal government does have the authority to regulate commerce. And that's Congress's whole job, is to regulate interstate commerce. So this is one of the largest unions in the United States and would ultimately have essentially put 90 some odd % of the railways out of business until this strike was solved. So very large estimates of how much money the economy would lose. Ultimately, what happened was the companies themselves and the unions had a little bit too farther of stances from each other, and the Biden administration and Congress basically said, here's a middle of the road package that we have come up with that takes a little from each side, vote on it. And that's actually what happened. So the railway unions weren't forced to take this deal. They could have voted otherwise. But I want to say it was like out of 13, only 2 of them voted against it. And so they have a majority rules, and there you go. What most likely will be the case at the end of this is that this deal will not stand in perpetuity. And what will happen is the United States government has given these sides enough leeway time to actually have more time to come to an agreement. So that is most likely what's going to happen. I would also just point out the fact that without sick leave, paid sick leave is a little bit of a misnomer. In the United States, it's a shitty system. I'm not justifying it. I'm just telling you, in the United States, most companies give you something called paid time off, which just can be used in any way that you want. If you want to use it for sick days, you can use it for sick days. If you don't, great, use it wherever. But then if you're sick and you have to call out, obviously that's not going to be covered. But in the United States, a lot of times it will be 3 days of paid time off, 3 days of sick days. But if you don't get quote unquote sick days, you get 6 days of paid time off. So they do actually have days built into the system where they can do that. Again, in the United States, it's one of the worst in the entire world. So it's still kind of a crappy deal, but yeah, better. So
okay, that was a good answer. Secular Sakai just gave us a $2 super chat to tell us that he added a patron question. This is added a patron question. My bad, and it's a big one. It doesn't even fit, Secular Sakai.
Now you definitely need to be apologizing.
Yeah. No. All right. It says Pan-Turanism is a Turkish version of Russian's Pan-Salvism. It's basically It basically expands on Pan-Turkism. I've heard of Pan-Turkism, but not Pan-Turanism, and seeks close cooperation or political unification on ethnic groups of Turks, Hungarians, Azeris. Azeris are Turks. Mongols, Finns, Estonians, multiple Russian minority ethnic groups like Tungus, Tatars, and others. Some American tribes, and several more groups. Wow. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Do you believe
ambitious.
That's very ambitious. Do you believe Pan-Turanism could be influencing Erdogan's foreign policy in Turkey with how close he has come with Orban of Hungary, supporting Ukraine against Russia, and supporting Azerbaijan against Armenia? Okay, first of all, I do understand the Pan-Turkic narrative, not this Pan-Turanism. Yeah. Supporting Azerbaijan against Armenia. Azerbaijan is Turkish in culture, so you don't need Pan-Turanism. Pan-Turkic attitudes is enough. I don't become close to Orban of Hungary. I think that might just be dictator. I'm a dictator, you're a dictator, let's support each other kind of attitude. Yeah, more than Pan-Turanism. Supporting Ukraine against Russia. Again, Turkey has a lot of interests that are not in line with Russia, right? So pressuring this, going closer to Russia and moving away from Russia has had its enough geopolitical. It made a lot of geopolitical sense for why Erdogan did that in different times. For us not to need a Pan-Turanism explanation, right? So I think they have, Pan-Turkic inspirations, like using the Turkish, because Turkish ethnicity is something strong, culturally uniting enough for you to tap into. This Turanism thing is not an identity that people associate with for you to be able to tap into that for unity. So I think anything that is beyond Pan-Turkic actually makes more sense based on geopolitical interests rather than anything that you want to call Pan-Turanism.
I'm blown away by this, and I just went and tried to pull some of this up, and it's fascinating to me to think that such disparate groups and histories and cultures and stuff, that you would just think that they would all kind of align together and stuff. It seems like it would be a very difficult group to keep, because you just have people that are so different. It doesn't seem the same as, Pan-Turkic, right? That's just trying to find all the people with Turkish ethnic roots and put them together. This seems to take a lot from a lot. I mean, again, Aboriginal tribes of Siberia is mentioned, and then the Manchus, and it's like, are you saying that these groups are like close enough in terms of history and culture? Like, I mean, maybe they're closer than others, but I don't know. Seems ambitious. So.
Okay, I found something. I don't remember his question. Okay, because I was looking for it. I was like, "Where is her question?" Because she's like, "Why are you guys not answering my question?" I found it. Okay, something I don't remember. Like when you want us to keep, like, if we miss your question, instead of saying "Why didn't you answer my question," repost your question multiple times so I see it. Okay, because I had to scroll so high to be able to find it. So something I don't remember is saying, I asked, how can you deny living in a simulated matrix when I see you guys every day being simulated as electoral signals in the integrated matrix of my smartphone, displaying your millions. I think the rest was somewhere else.
Yeah, easy
Millions
though.
of pixel. Yeah, how?
Easy, because the system that the answer to the question that I'm proposing about what reality is includes that. And still we don't have any information for this extra thing you're adding on. But the theory that you're proposing is the extra thing that doesn't account for all of these other things. So we don't have any demonstration that we are living in a matrix. And you pointing to video conferences and episodes on YouTube and stuff is not indicative of us living in a simulated world. We would need other things that demonstrate that, and we don't have it.
So it violates the law of conservatism when it comes to coming up with theories that have explanatory power.
Yep.
So you're adding something that is unnecessary,
right?
That doesn't explain anything. So adding unnecessary thing violates the explanatory criteria of theories.
Yep.
Cool.
I mean, it'd be fun to live in a matrix, though. I mean, that'd be cool, I guess, but
depends on how in control you are.
Good point. Yeah.
All right. Asian American saying, assuming the Islamic regime in Iran survives, do you see Iran mutating the morality police into a point-based criticism like PRC does? No, because that would be too un-Islamic. Oh, by the way, the question was longer. I didn't include the last part. Like, for example, 1 point for showing hair, 5 for short shorts, 7 for.
Why would it be un-Islamic? Is it because you're ranking different things and they're all supposed to be the same, or?
Because that's too much like what God is supposed to do.
Okay. Yeah.
Like
God's actually calculating everything. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like it's just too much like what happens in the Judgment Day. It's just so similar. Like you're like, oh, you get this many points for this, and this many points you get taken off for this. So you're counting sins and you're counting good deeds. That's so much like Judgment Day. And basically doing something that is so close to what God is supposed to be, I think it's not. It's like very. I'm not sure, but it just comes across as too godlike.
Now that's really interesting, because here's what comes to my mind when you say this, because I understand that perspective, because again, that's where a lot of Christians will come from it too. They'll say, hey, this may be a sin, but I'm not judging you. That's God's domain, right? Would that logic for that being un-Islamic, would that also work on the flip side, where I've heard people say, if you donate right now during Ramadan, like your rewards in heaven are doubled? Would that be the flip side of that? Would that also be un-Islamic? Because what those people are doing is they're saying that some of the good deeds you're doing, Allah will actually reward you extra. Or is it literally written out that, hey, during these particular times you do receive double points?
No, they're just describing what Allah would do. They're not doing it themselves. So
okay, I see what you're saying. I see. Yeah. Okay, that's the difference. If they were literally calculating it out and saying normally you'd get 5 points, but now you get
Let me give you an example. Okay, so there's a hadith where some atheists were burned alive, but because they were atheists, right?
Oh, sure.
And Ali, the first Imam of Shias and the fourth Khalifa of the Sunnis, complained about that. Like, why you shouldn't have done that? Okay, not because, and we're like, oh, great, like somebody, like apparently there's a Muslim leader advocating for human rights. I was like, no, the problem that he had was with the way they were killed, not because they were killed, right?
Sure.
So this is like a hadith that I think both Shias and Sunnis accept, is that his complaint was that you killed them in the way that God punishes. Like the fire, like you're not supposed to burn people alive because hellfire is how God does justice.
Come on.
Yeah, you're like
That's,
the Islam,
I
the
mean,
Islamic, yeah. Humans are supposed to cut heads like with the sword, right? That's the
wow.
Islamic way where humans do. Fire is the tool of God. So
Huh.
that's why you're not supposed to burn them alive.
Okay. I mean,
So,
all right. I fair enough. Like,
yeah. So again, by the way, I don't know if this is like what I'm saying would be seen as un-Islamic or
Yeah,
not. Like
yeah.
I'm just like guessing that
Giving your
this
thought.
yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. It was really interesting though, because I didn't know that PRC did that. I didn't know that they like did this point system thing.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's just fascinating. Like,
Yeah.
holy crap.
Yeah, you can like you if you lose enough points, you can't go on a train because like you don't have enough. You've been a bad citizen. You don't have enough points to get on a train.
Can you do things to get points? Like, can you gain your points back somehow? Like,
I guess you could comment on Mao's picture or something.
Yeah.
Show your love
like
for the
burn a bunch of Winnie the Pooh memorabilia and just be like, you
know.
don't look anything like this, She. You don't look like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, I don't know. No, but there was a guy that was like I saw it in a documentary. There was a guy in China that had so little points that he could like not get much like out of his neighborhood. Like he was stuck. He was like stuck. Yeah, and this happened after the Black Mirror episode. Have you seen the Black Mirror episode?
Oh yeah, the social media thing. Yeah.
So
for
people
sure.
were like, "Wow, Black
Creepy.
Mirror predicted what's going to happen in China." So
really, really creepy. Yeah. Man, I wonder what my points are. They're probably not high. So,
well, you're not a Chinese, so you have 0 score.
Well, I mean, I'd like to have at least 1 point, you know?
We have something close to that in the United States and other Western countries. The credit score is kind of like that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. And you get
it's
screwed over on it.
Yeah, it's not as bad. But
your any past dealings with the law, especially in the United States, will oftentimes influence how you're being punished this time. If you've never committed a crime before in your life, oftentimes you're going to get a little bit more leniency on the sentence. Whereas if you have a history of violence, then
something I don't remember, was not satisfied with your answer.
Give me some way to test as to whether or not we're in a matrix. When you come up with that, then we can go test it, I guess. But
let's just tell her that we are in a matrix.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see if okay. Yeah, this is like your fears are confirmed. Okay, let's just see if she's satisfied now.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to Higgs boson. Higgs boson is saying, by the way, guys, I posted a link for people to come up because we're running out of time. You literally have like 10 minutes to in total to ask your questions and then hear our answers. So if you do use the link in the community tab, try to keep it short and sweet, and then we'll try to answer short and sweet as well. So Higgs boson is saying, why China, mainland China? Why do you have to say mainland China? China is mainland. Okay. I mean, like, are you trying to say like not Taiwan? Okay. Why mainland China add peoples before ROC
Republic of China,
People's Republic of China, to distinguish from Taiwan? Oh, okay. So you are trying to distinguish from Taiwan. Similarly, why North Korea calls itself DPRK to distinguish from South Korea? Like the people, why do they have the people as well? Like RK.
Yeah,
but it's a communist brand. Like the people's part, that when you say people's, right? That's a brand that that is associated with communism. Whenever you say people, like for example, right? MEK, right? So MEK, which is a leftist militia group, right? It's Mujahideen Khalq. So Khalq is peoples. Oh yeah. So again, people here. Actually, look at this. Look how this is an Islamic communist group. Like, look at this, right? So the MEK, otherwise known as the People's Mujahideen Organization. Look, the symbol is a mix of Islamic and communist symbols.
So weird,
right? But you can see peoples in the name as well, which is basically gives you that communist vibe. So that's the reason.
Branding. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Shannon Gray is saying Germany and Peru have each dealt with their own internal coup d'etats attempts over recent days and weeks. With current movements in Iran, China, and even ripples of the January 6th events at the U.S. Capitol still also brewing, how do you see this upswell of rebellion on the global stage playing out? How long until the proletariat rises? Jesus Christ, proletariat rises. Go on.
So real quick, because we already talked about the Germany coup plot. So for anybody that's unfamiliar with what happened in Peru recently, basically the president, who was already about to have a vote of impeachment against him, his approval rating is incredibly dismal. I think like 86% of the country disagrees with his policies and so forth. But what happened was right before the Congress was going to vote on impeaching him, he basically stood up and said, by executive authority, I'm going to disband the Congress. Now, ultimately, he was removed from office, and the vice president became the first female president of Peru, and the Congress is reinstated, and all that's good. People were calling it a coup d'etat, but there was no actual coup d'etat. They're referencing it as a coup, but in reality, what happened was the president came out, made a declaration, wanted something to happen in which he would retain power illegally, and they pulled him out of office and arrested him. So there was no military action or anything. I think that is at least important.
Okay, that's very good information. I'm glad you knew this. Well, but Secularity knows a lot about different things. It's amazing. I just want to say that there's not an increase in these things. Yeah. I mean, you guys, like, I don't know which part of history you're talking about, because I mean, in the 1980s, 1990s, 1960s, 70s, we have had these things happening all the time. If you zoom out, these things are actually, the world is actually a lot more stable than it used to be. Like, if you compare us with 100 years ago, things are a lot more stable right now. If you compare it with 200 years ago, things are a lot more stable right now. But even short term, these things are not unique. Like, even if you go back 10, 20, 30 years ago, we have had these things constantly. Like, it seems like we're moving in the form of more in the direction of stability rather than instability. That's what maybe there's like small variations over like every 5 years, but overall the trend seems to be positive. What do you think?
Yeah, and I would say, I think what's going on in Iran and China is more similar. What happened with Germany and January 6th is more similar. And then I would say what happened in Peru is probably more similar to, I don't know, a handful of places around the world where we've seen this happen before, where somebody's like, hey, actually, I kind of want to stay in power a little bit longer, you know? So I would say that I don't think specifically what happened in Germany and Peru is kind of a continuation of what's going on in Iran and China. But at the same time, yeah, I would tend to agree. Like, there's this thing in the Christian apologist space where it's like, oh no, the end times is coming because there's wars and rumors of wars. And it's like, yeah, that's literally been all of human history. Like, we've been fighting each other forever. So when that stops happening, that may be the time you actually start talking about the apocalypse. But
right. Okay, so let's go to this. Zagros just gave us a $5 super chat. So thank you so much for that, Zagros. Very generous today. People are being very kind. Yeah. Zagros saying, did you hear about Iranian authorities talking to Venezuelans for safeguarding in case they need asylum?
Wow.
This is very recent, by the way, Zagros. So we're looking into the details of that. Susanna is confirming that we will be talking about this. So Susanna saying, Zagros, I'm planning to talk about that on the news show. So yeah, we will go into more detail about that when Susanna is there on the news show as well. So guys, subscribe and hit the bell notification so you guys don't miss the news where we will be covering this in detail. But in general, if the details are verified, which we'll wait for that on the news show, this is a huge signal that things, because we don't have access to a lot of information, okay? We don't know what's happening behind the scenes, what conversations our hardliners are having with each other, and how unstable, like we just had a whole bunch of leaked information that shows to us that things are a lot more unstable than even us assumed in the Iranian regime. And they seem to be admitting that they don't have enough force to suppress the people. But this would be, if this news is true, this is actually a major signal that they are seeing it more likely for this whole thing to be crashing down, right? So it's a huge signal that the toppling of the regime has a chance. Again, I'm not promising anything. I'm not predicting the future. Right. I don't know how long this will take, but the people that have more information than us, which is the hardliners in government themselves, if they are doing this, this is a major signal that they know something that shows that this could come crashing.
Yeah. So I agree. And I think it's, again, this is just one of those moments where the international community should not allow criminals to get away. Right. And this is what's happened. This is what has happened in the past. Right. That's why everybody knows about the Yahtzees in Argentina and Brazil. Right. It's like we've seen this exact playbook happen where people commit international war crimes against humanity, and then they're able to escape to one of these pariah states like this. So yeah, if this is confirmed as true, A, it says a lot, and B, we shouldn't let it happen as an international community. So.
That's actually a good point that you added. I wasn't thinking about that. Good point. Okay, I see PK is waiting, so let's answer this last question and then go bring PK up. Shannon is asking, pretty quick announcement. Oh, so it's not a question. Pretty quick announcement, rolling back strict pandemic protections from the National Health Commission in China in response to the brave protesting of their citizens. Is this just for show for the rest of the world? Is this even what the people are upset about anymore? Okay, so there are different demands and complaints by the Chinese protesters. Which one is more? I don't think we have any reliable statistics. Unless we do, somebody let us know. But they seem to be all the way from just remove these strict pandemic rules all the way to just topple the whole regime, right? So, and there's everything in between. I don't know how much of each we have, but we've seen all of them. We've seen people who just demanding that you just stop the restrictions, and also people who like, yeah, it's time for this regime to fall. So there's many different people within the spectrum. So we can't talk about them as if they're all are saying or wanting the same thing, unless we get more information in the near future. So, and also I don't know what will happen, like, because unfortunately for China, one reason why they put all these strict restriction is because they refuse to use proper vaccines, right? So removing, like, it would be good for them not to have these strict rules because they use vaccines that work, but in their arrogance, in their refusal to use vaccines from other countries that actually does the job, they were forced to put these strict rules. Again, I'm not saying that there were these rules were justified, but because they forced themselves into having to have these strict rules. Now I don't know what's going to happen if they remove these rules. You might see a wave of infections happening in China, so much so that the hospitals will not have the capacity to take in all the sick people. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that might happen, right? Again, I'm not saying that by the way, if that happens, be careful, guys. Do not say that the Chinese government was justified to have these strict rules, given once they remove it, if all of a sudden the hospitals get so filled that they don't have capacity anymore, maybe the CCP comes and say like, see, this is why we needed to have these like strict rules. Like, no, F you. If you actually weren't this arrogant to not use vaccines from American or British vaccines, then this wouldn't be needed. So don't let them win that narrative if all of a sudden they use their own people's death as a way to try to signal that they were justified in the strict rules, right? But what do you think?
Yeah, I think a lot of that definitely I agree with. I also would say that it's possible that, like the mandatory hijab in Iran, that the COVID restrictions, the COVID lockdowns in PRC ends up becoming, more of that push and that symbol, where at first, hey, it really is this thing, and now it's this broader concept. It's possible, but I agree. I think currently on the ground, there's a huge range of different opinions. I would also say that in part, this is a show for the rest of the world, because even though the numbers of infections and deaths are actually higher in some countries now than they ever have been due to the bug, countries around the world are going about normal life again, and people are able to gather in large numbers without masks and without all these other restrictions. And I think on a global level, the Chinese government still having its citizens in these harsh restrictions gives people more of a negative view. And I think the CCP would like to try and, massage that as best they can. That's their whole game. So yeah, I think a little bit is a show for the rest of the world. So
I mean, this was the whole point of this. This was a major PR push by China to show that they are better than every other country.
We're zero. Right? We got zero. Yeah. We got zero, baby. We're good.
It became the exact opposite of what it meant to be. Like all the people who try to do Chinese government propaganda and try to like advertise for them, they were like, look, the rest of the world hasn't figured this out. China figured it out. It performed the best, and the best, it responded to this better than any country, and they figured it out, and they like completely defeated this disease and everything. And look how this shows the superiority of China. Remember, beginning of this whole pandemic spreading, people are like, oh, look how maybe democracy is not a good idea. Look how China,
they were literally saying that.
People were saying like, look, China is building hospitals like overnight. Maybe we should like rethink if democracy is slow, huh? Yeah. Maybe like we should give in to dictatorships, because look at what they can accomplish, right? And look at what a big embarrassment has it become. The whole world is now out in the open and back to normal life, and China has turned into a prison. Right. Like, look how fast. I was mentioning this. I remember when people were saying that, I was like, dictatorships is like living on credit cards, right? You look like Stalin or like Adolf, right? You accomplish many things in a very short amount of time, and people are like, oh, look at these. Like, imagine you're on yachts and traveling, and you're like, this guy must have figured something out. Look at the way he's living,
right?
Like you will look very successful if you just go all out on your credit cards in the next month. Okay, is that sustainable? Okay, and that's the difference between democracy. Like in the short term, you're like, oh, the dictators seem to be figuring it out, but is it sustainable? Democracy, the achievements that you get through democratic means, is sustainable. Short term, every time you see dictators doing flashy big things, ask yourself, how long is this going to last? Historically, how long have they managed to keep that going, right? And now we see, like, we didn't even have to wait for long. Like, you see how far China is behind it. Something that they were using as soft power, as a propaganda technique, to show the whole world. This was the major policy by the CCP to show the world that they're superior. And now they have shown the world how inferior they are with their policies, right?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, let's bring PK. Hello, PK. Hi.
Hey.
PK. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are you guys doing?
Good. What's your question?
Oh yeah, I'll get to the question quickly. I was, all this World Cup going on, so I was also watching matches. I was just thinking, like, the especially the do you think that the Middle East has a sustainable future? Because I just see them like spending all their oil money on extremely wasteful things. Like like Qatar, Saudi, they just like really just going through all that money on these, like, thinking that this will boost their tourism economy for the future. But I just don't think that's ever going to happen. Even like even Dubai, like, there's nothing really there. It's just only reason it's functional is because they have a very low tax rate. So do you guys think that the Middle East as a region will be able to survive in like 2-3 decades when there's like no oil money?
Define survive.
Survive in the sense, the kind of standard of living they have right now.
Okay.
Okay.
I think
them
they'll.
like, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I was going to say, I think there'll definitely have to be some massive changes. I think some of the biggest changes will be more liberalism, more democracy, more capitalist type focus. I think all of those things, not 100% liberal, not 100% democracy, 100%. There's safeguards on all of those that need to be put in place, and regulations and stuff. When it comes to shifting from kind of those old markets of money to the new markets of money, for the vast majority of places around the world, it hasn't been too terribly difficult. And one of the reasons is because the system that we kind of participate in on a global level when it comes to finance, if you already have a bunch of capital in your pocket, you're able to do a lot more stuff easier than other people. So for instance, the Rockefeller family in the United States made all of their money on oil. Did you know that the Rockefeller family is actually the #1 investor in green energy in the United States? And the reason is because they are the people that actually have the ability to make such large movements. So I think we will start seeing more of a focus away from oil. They'll start putting that money into other things. But again, I think the most changes are going to come from politics and finance in general, in the sense of a more capitalist system. So,
but let's be clear. You're not talking about Middle Eastern countries as a whole. You're talking about Gulf Arab countries specifically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair.
All right, because if you're talking about Middle Eastern countries, that includes Israel.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot more. Yeah, it's fair.
Yeah. So so Gulf Arab countries, specifically Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the UAE, and Bahrain. Right? Okay. So these are different countries and they have different policies, right? So each one of their destiny has to be analyzed separately, right? Sure. And I think like the model with UAE and Qatar has a higher chance of working than Saudi Arabia. Okay. So you have to, because Qatar and UAE, especially, like, they're not just investing in big projects, right? They're doing a lot of other things as well. Again, I'm not saying their model will work, but they are trying many other things, right? Like Qatar is becoming, like, trying to figure out how to be a center for all things commerce, and all three of them are actually, like, the Qatar, UAE, and Saudi Arabia. They're all trying to bringing, it's more than just flashy entertainment stuff and liberalization and big buildings, right? It's also more about spending so much money in trying to bring businesses to these hubs so much so that even though it's forced, even though they might be building things that are not useful, that are building things that are just flashy and doesn't make any sense for them to build, because of all that aggressive investment and investment banks and accounting firms and construction firms being there, it turns into a network hub of different businesses, because they already have their offices there, they already have manpower there, that it becomes a destination for doing business, right? With the low tax rates and everything. And if you keep doing that for long enough, then because it has been a business hub for a long time, it will just remain a business hub after they have run out of their oil money. So that's their philosophy, right? So you keep building giant buildings and other stuff, or also make not just a business hub, also a political hub. Like Qatar has successfully made it so that it's a arbiter between many different political groups. This is why they're very interested in like, oh, you guys have a problem. Hey, come here, come to Doha, and we'll get you guys make you guys negotiate. They want to be the go-to guy that has a relationship with both Israel and Iran, right? With the United States and the Taliban, right? So that you have to go to them for negotiations, right? Many countries like doing that, right? Because then you need them. So theoretically, that could work.
I mean,
right?
it could work
Yeah.
only for Qatar or UAE, but Saudi has such a
Yes.
big population, you can't run it
Okay.
on as a commercial, on just being a commercial hub or whatever, a business hub.
Right. So, okay. So, yeah, I agree that the UAE and Qatar have a higher chance of making this work than Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Yeah.
So it can work in theory, but what matters is not the theory. What matters is the execution, right? And being effective at its execution, right?
Yeah.
And Qatar has so far shown to be good at its execution, right? Saudi Arabia seems to be throwing shit at the wall and see if it sticks, and they just like doing. They don't seem to be very being smart at it, right? Like one example of it is the line. I don't know if you've seen the city that they're trying to build in the middle of the desert called the Line. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, I've seen it.
It just seems like a kid's understanding of how things works. Like, I don't know. Here, let me actually show you guys. So Saudi Arabia is spending $1 trillion, okay, over building this city that is literally a line. Look at this. It's a literal
insane,
right? So it's going to look like this.
How long is this? How like far across is this?
I don't know. Like,
it's going to go across their whole country is what it looks like.
They started already. You can see the construction is started.
Oh my gosh.
Right? But it's like a giant mirror in the middle of the desert.
Okay,
it's like
that's dumb, right? Yeah. Like, that's dumb. Putting a giant mirror on the edge of a coast that's just going to reflect a bunch of light onto various ships that is going to cause them problems with navigation. Okay.
I mean, dumb. I don't know much about architecture, but I think that is dumb. Okay.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I'm not an architect either, but how okay, so
I would imagine like I'll make a city like in a circle rather than a line. Things just get so far away.
Yeah, and it would be cramped. You would have such congestion because people wouldn't have the ability to
wait.
Oh my gosh, this just seems really stupid.
Well, I mean, we could watch.
Not to mention the amount of glass required to make those like tall glass things. It's just insane.
Here, let's watch this together.
Okay, just real quick. I typed into Google Saudi Arabia and then in quotes the Line, and one of the first things that come up is most asked questions: is the Line Saudi Arabia real? People apparently are not believing that it is a serious venture, but
yeah, I mean, I've listened to a lot of architectures on YouTube, and they're like pulling their hair out over what this is supposed to be.
It just seems like one of those moments where, you know, we see this really new engineering, you know, feat of technology or whatever, and then you're just like, oh, it's just a toaster. Like, why do we have to go through all this work for a toaster? Like, just toast my bread, you know?
Okay, but let's watch. Let me know if you have audio. Let me know if you have audio.
We do.
For too long, humanity has existed within dysfunctional and polluted cities that ignore nature. Now, a revolution in civilization is taking place. Imagine a traditional city and consolidating its footprint, designing to protect and enhance nature. The Line will be home to 9 million residents and will be built with a footprint of just 34 square kilometers. and we are designing it to provide a healthier, more sustainable quality of life. The line's communities are organized in 3 dimensions. Residents have access to all their daily needs within 5-minute walk neighborhoods. And the line's infrastructure makes it possible to travel end to end in 20 minutes with no need for cars, resulting in 0 carbon emissions. By leveraging AI technology, services are autonomous, saving you time and effort. Designed by world-leading architects, the line is 500 meters tall, 200 meters wide, 170 kilometers long, and housed within an elegant mirror glass facade. Intelligent solutions create efficiency and year-round temperate microclimate with natural ventilation. Energy and water supplies are 100% renewable. The line is designed as a series of unique communities, offering a wealth of amenities, providing equitable views and immediate access to the surrounding nature. With 40% of the world accessible within 6 hours, at the heart of the globe's key trade routes, a place for commerce and communities to thrive like nothing on Earth seen before. The line, the city that delivers new wonders for the world.
This to me is the marketing video that one of those new like Silicon Valley tech companies puts out to like get investors, and then by the end of the video you're kind of just like, wait, what does this company do again? Are they building stuff? Are they coding? How are they doing any of this, you know?
Not to mention they'll just like put in a lot of those AI, robotics,
I know.
renewable.
I know. I saw that and I was just like, wait a second. Do you
Just
think that's
all
where we
those-
are? Like, do you
All
think that's
those headline grabbing,
Oh.
technology stuff. It's just
Oh
a
my
bunch
God.
of mumbo jumbo.
Yeah, that's a really good question about the building of it. You know, how are you going to get all the workers? How are you going to? It's at 100% renewable water supply. How? What are you gonna do? What's your plan? Like, I get that you're not going to go into depth here, but like,
There's a lot of videos on this, but
Wow.
I get. I've seen a lot of architects like this issuing a lot of warnings about this, right?
Breaks
I don't. Yeah, I don't know if this is gonna work or not. Okay, but if it doesn't, that's a lot of money that goes towards a failed project. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's
Like
ever
this-
going to get built, honestly. Like
Okay, but that
170
would be
kilometers.
so embarrassing. This is like the whole Neon project, like all the things that they're doing. If they fail, this could like bankrupt Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
right? Like they're like, oh, we're running out of oil money. Let's do something that could make us money. And this other thing that they're doing, it could actually bankrupt them faster because they're just throwing so much money at it. Okay,
Wow.
I don't know if this stuff is going to work, but Saudi Arabia seems to be like eager to just risk so much, like.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know.
Yeah.
So
and it just really seems like they're I mean, look, you got to be bold if you want to change the course of human history, but at the same time, like, nobody remembers the millions that failed, right? And that's
even
because
if this
failed.
works, it doesn't make sense for Saudi Arabia. The problem with Saudi Arabia is it has zero, like, it's not food secure. They can't grow their own
Right.
food. They don't have other resources. The only resource they have is oil. So if they run out of oil money,
they're trying to. Okay, they know they're going to run out of oil money. So what they're trying to do is just bring so much business to Saudi Arabia with the oil money, so that when they run out of oil money, the businesses are already there, so they're just not going to go, and they're going to pay taxes and bring investments, and they're going to try to be sustainable on that, right?
Why
So
would-
they're like it has to be so flashy and so crazy that just we spend so much money that there's just too much money to be made in Saudi Arabia for them to ignore us. That's what they're saying.
Are they?
That's what
Is the Saudi Arabian government assuming that people are going to move from other cities?
Oh yeah, they already said
Saudi
that this is
Arabia.
gonna.
in
Yeah,
the
this
middle
is
of a
gonna.
desert.
I mean, okay. I mean, the middle of desert. You don't really care if it's the middle of desert. I mean, the UAE is the middle of desert, so it's not a bad place to live. UAE, right? For at least for the people who are rich, right? But the thing, okay. So I'm not. The understanding is that they're gonna have different laws for these neon projects. Like, there's not gonna be Sharia. Like, they're gonna
No
have.
way. No
Yeah.
freaking way. So they're gonna have this freaking wall of a city, this road of a city that doesn't adhere to the laws that the entire rest of the country adheres to. Like, so what? You're gonna have your entire population of your country move to this freaking place that you're only expecting 9 million?
No. There's gonna be poor people who are right, outside of the city. And
Oh yeah.
Well, not
well,
9 people. Of course not. They're not
thank
gonna let the
goodness.
peasants. They're not gonna let the peasants inside the city. What are you talking about?
Oh my god.
Imagine
Oh
the
my
inside
gosh.
becomes like a total greenhouse. and they just
That really is
and
that
just
is
heats up everything.
crazy. That is a
But-
crazy thought to me. Wow.
Yeah. Also, like, okay, hold
Wow.
on. Also, it's very bad. Like, they keep acting like this is amazing for wildlife, wildlife, but it's actually not.
Yeah, it seems to be disrupting a lot.
No, it's like it's a literal line that is going to wait. That's not a good video of it. Here, let me actually put this one. They're actually building it. Look, they actually started building it. It's going to cut migration of desert animals by, because there's no way to pass it. One,
sure.
two. The mirror is going to be hot. It's going to literally like fry anything that gets close to it.
Yes. Right? I mean,
yeah.
And also, and this is something that we do all the time. We build these massive structures on Earth and then just go like, well, at least we didn't cut down a whole forest. And then, 2 years later, we come to find out that causes massive flooding in another part, because that's what happens when you disrupt such a large section of the environment like this. Like, that's a huge wall that they're just putting up in the middle of. I mean, that's going to change, air circulation. That's going to change a lot of different.
How are they going to clean that? How are they going to clean that mirror?
Oh my God, there are people that would literally 24/7 would have to be cleaning that. I mean, you would just have to have people constantly hanging from the side, washing the windows.
I'll tell you
is
what
crazy.
they'll say. AI robotics is going to do everything.
Oh my God, sure.
That's going to be there.
Yeah, there's
Don't
a
worry.
reason. Yeah, we don't have AI cars figured out or AI drones figured out, but somehow this whole freaking city is going to run off of. Yeah, okay.
Solar panels.
Man, holy crap, man. Seriously, this is I'm intrigued by this, really. This is fascinating to me. I think it's a really bad idea. I know the Saudi Arabian government doesn't often take my advice on major building projects, but I would say don't do it. That's
Look at this. This is
that just seems like
yeah. Another main problem with this is that other cities, right? You don't usually have like all the fundings needed to build a city, right? You start somewhere and then other people come in and invest. Like, you start like the initial phases of a city, right? That is functional on its own, right? Even though the whole thing is not complete. And because it's functioning, more business and more investments follow that fund the rest of the expansion of the city, right? But this city, like, how does that work? Like, you have to build the whole thing, or can you start with like some of the line?
Oh, and some of it's even going over a little section of water, it looks like there near the end. Like, this is insane. Honestly, it's just insane.
But like, we don't have anything like this ever, right? So we don't know if this is going to work. And for you to put like so much money on something that we don't have like a model for before, like, this is a huge risk with your country's money.
Yeah, quite a massive risk.
Yeah.
Just that alone, just that alone of doing enough landscaping that you can actually make stuff level enough. Like, that alone is a project that is so massive of an undertaking. Getting the supplies out to some of those places initially, holy crap, man. This it really does make me happy. I mean, it's probably just because I'm expecting it to not really work well, but
either way, it's going to be
holy
amazing.
crap.
Okay, so because if this fails,
Good point.
right, we're going to be like, well, this is going to be amazing for us to watch this whole thing crash and burn. Like, it's going to be amazing. Like, it's going to be such an embarrassment for the Saudi regime, and it's going to be beautiful for us to watch it, right? So that's going to be fun to watch if it fails.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't fail, that's also amazing, right? Either we're gonna see like
there's no way that's happening.
Okay,
It's not
Okay,
gonna work.
I don't know. I know, but like we win either way because we either gonna get a freaking line of a city, right, which is amazing, okay, or we're gonna see the failure of the Saudi regime. Either way, we're gonna come out winning from this. So
I'm seeing the three of us 20 years from now all getting back together and just being like, man, we called that one wrong, you guys. Like, we're all living in these line cities now around the world. AI is washing our windows all the time. Like, boy, did we call that one wrong. Like,
I don't know.
Imagine you have to meet someone in the center of that line. So you have to, you have to travel like at the edge of the line and then travel inside for like, I guess, 80 kilometers just to meet someone. It's insanity.
wow.
It's literally insanity.
Okay,
I don't
so
know.
Secular Sakai is saying that like we have to think about the economic refugee crisis. Okay, honestly, good point. However, the Saudi regime has been responsible for more refugees. I mean, this country losing its influence around the world will be a benefit to the planet. So I understand that we need to be worried about and care about the Saudi citizens and what happens to them, right? But that's important. But at the same time, like we celebrate Putin's regime's economically failing, because even though we're sad about the Russian people, we understand the harm that the Russian government is doing is so much to the world that unfortunately, the benefits from them losing that economic power is more than the harm to the Russian people. Like, it's unfortunate, but that's how things are, right? So I feel the same thing about the Saudi government. Like, if they fail, go on.
Yeah, but at least like Russia is like food secure and stuff. Like Saudi Arabia, if they can't sell anything to the outside world, they don't have any food to grow. Like, people will literally starve. That's the problem. You need to, if you don't have your own resources to feed yourself, you need to be able to sell things
I
to the
don't think
outside
they're gonna
world too.
fail. I think there will be like I don't think they're gonna fail to that extent. I think like they have enough businesses to keep like
But the business
have nice
has to be like
buildings.
selling stuff outside to be able to import.
No,
everything.
they have services. Like, you have enough. That's the whole point of what they're doing. They're trying to make it such a center of business activity that there's enough buildings and headquarters of major companies that their citizens are just working there and providing services, right? You don't have to actually build stuff to be economic viable.
That can work, but then you need to then invest in your people to be educated so that they can.
That's what they're trying to.
That's
why I wish that they were focusing on education. Like, imagine all this money that they're spending right now. Like, they could have spent it on some other things that would lead into. I don't know. Like, yes, I agree. Education is the key thing. I mean, they are investing in education, to be fair to them. Like, I'm not trying to be. They understand the importance of education, and they are investing in that, right? But again, this is a major gamble, right? If this fails, that's a lot of money that you could have been investing in better things. And
and a huge amount of time and a huge amount of your population, probably, that's going to be, because again, like, you're going to have that type of project is going to have thousands and thousands of people working on it for years.
Even if it's successful, which I doubt, right? It was a massive gamble because the chances of it failing was huge, right? And I suspect that the people who are advising MBS kind of know that this is like probably going to fail. Okay.
Imagine the amount of brain force on that.
Hold on, I'm not finished. But I just think, like, don't forget that thought. I just think that there's just too much money to be made by a lot of people for you to tell him like this is a bad idea. Like imagine if you're like, oh yeah, this is a project that is going to give me, I don't know, $10 million. It's going to give you $20 million. It's going to give that guy $30 million. Are you going to tell MBS that this is a bad idea when you're making so much money out of this project? Like, I think he's surrounded by so many, like, you're throwing money around. So obviously people are going to be like, yeah, this is such a great idea. PK, you wanted to say something about the wind?
Yeah, just one thing. If there's like a windstorm, like a desert windstorm there, the amount of force on that thing would be enormous.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's actually
yeah.
very good because
sure.
you know this thing is supposed to be taller than the Eiffel Tower, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you go into the Eiffel Tower, when I was there, there's a device there that shows how much the wind swings the Eiffel Tower, right? And the Eiffel Tower is not even like a wall, like it has holes in it that wind can go through, and it still swings a lot because of the wind. And this whole thing is taller than the Eiffel Tower, and it's a wall that just goes forever. I don't know, how is it supposed to resist? It's a mirror. How is it supposed to resist the wind? I don't know.
Again, and just the truly the ecological ramifications, like there's just no way that you can do a full accounting of that, because we don't have anything like this that we can look back to and say like, oh yeah, this is how it happened when they did this back in the 1200s, you know? No. So like, no matter what calculation they're doing, like you could argue, okay, all of this stuff we have in place is going to, you know, on average make less pollution than the city, but you don't know what putting that large of a structure like that across this section of your land. Like, oh my gosh, it's really, I am deeply interested in this now, but holy shit, I think it's a bad idea.
Another reason why you would be justified to think that this was probably a really bad idea is the history of Saudi Arabia's government with them being attracted by shiny things that look, oh my God, look at this. Here's all my money, right? And then it not working. So they have a history of this. Like so given their history, this might be one of those other projects that were like, oh, shiny, here's a lot of money. And oh, the country just went bankrupt. I don't know. We'll see. Wow. I don't know. This seems like a really bad idea. Yeah. All right. PK, do you want to add anything else? So this is what the whole point was you were asking whether this could work or not work, this model, to diversify away from fossil fuels. Yeah. Again, in theory, I think it could work. Execution, there's a smart way of doing this and a dumb way of doing this. And it seems like some of them are smarter about it than the other ones. Like, so. Yeah. So you cannot come up with an answer for all of them. I do think the Qataris are doing this a lot more intelligently than the Saudis. So we'll see though.
I don't know. I think they're not. Only thing I think the saving grace for Qataris is that there's like no Qatari citizens. It's like just a few 100,000. Even if everything fails, they have enough money for those few 100,000 people. But for Saudis, like they'll have like 100 million population. I mean, no amount of business attraction.
I mean, the Qataris have done a good job in not getting into wars, in having good relationships with everybody, in, you know, I mean, they have played it smart so far. I don't know what have the Qataris done wrong, in your opinion?
I mean, the amount of money they spent on the football as a just though, like I think they're just spending like trillions. I think the amount they actually say that they're spending is far less than what they've been, not only on the World Cup but also like on all the European football teams. They have been just bleeding money into PSG. The PSG is like a.
They have, but the Qataris, the money that they're spending is relative to the budget that funding that they have. They have the money for it. Like Saudi sometimes spends money even proportionally relative to the budget that they have, is like even based on their Saudi standards is extremely high. You know what I mean? But Qataris, like they did, like if you look at how much they have. And what they get out of it when it comes to soft power, it's not it wasn't unreasonable. I mean, they spend more than everyone else, but they have the cash for it.
I mean, yeah, I mean, we'll see.
I mean, they have such a surplus, and they need to spend it on increasing their reputation and soft power. Like football seems to be like, where else would they put it? Like it made like it seemed like a logical place to put their money in. By the way, we have to go. But Secular Sakai just bought 5 people memberships. Bought membership. Yeah, thank you so much. Atheist Damon, Mogambo, Prometheus, and I was gifted a membership. I got membership. Thank you. I got a membership to my own channel, to our own channel. Thank you.
Nice.
And Athanasia, they all got memberships from Secular Sakai. So thank you so much. Thank you for the gifting us membership. Oh, look,
Sakai got scammed.
All right, guys. All right.
Yeah,
PK,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was a good question. We went on a journey with each other there. Okay, so I think you're now gonna go investigate this. You seem intrigued.
I'm yes, deeply motivated to learn more about this because we will. Either way, you were correct. Either way, we come out victorious. So.
Victorious. Yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna end the stream here. Thank you so much, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe and leave a comment and hit the bell notification and subscribe to his newsletter. God, this last week's blasphemous art was
really
very juicy. I needed some time alone after seeing it. So for people who don't know, we have some 60 blasphemous art of Hindu gods, Muslim prophets and imams, and Christian holy figures, and hijabi, like a lot of hijabi, lesbian hijabi art, blasphemous art that is very, very sexy that we can't show you here on YouTube. But if you are subscribed to our newsletter, you get new blasphemous art in different styles, but by different artists every week. Every week we have new art, right? So make sure you subscribe to our newsletter so you get our blasphemous art. If you don't like some of them, don't worry. We have different styles by different artists. The next one might be more to your liking. Some of them I like, some of the ones I like, Susanna doesn't like. Some of the ones I don't like, Susanna likes. So different art for different tastes, right? But this last week's art was like, so good. Very sexy, yeah. So subscribe to our newsletter. Make sure you do that, and also you can support us on Patreon, link on PayPal, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member. All right. Okay. Bye, guys. See you with Susanna on the news. Subscribe for that. All right. Bye.